Hi, friends. Logan Clements here, one of your co hosts with the Better Events podcast. And in this week's episode, we are hitting a milestone 150 episodes of this podcast. It is a huge achievement that Mary and I are so proud of. And we thought it would be fun to look back and talk about what you guys actually love about our podcast. We've done a couple episodes where we've shared our favorite episodes and all of that. But this one, we're actually revealing our top 5 most listened to episodes, give you our reactions to some of that news, how we got the idea for the episode, and what surprised us since it came out. So this is a great episode for you. If you're looking to just cherry pick and figure out what highlights you should go back and listen to, or maybe you can decide if you agree or disagree with what all of our listeners have to say about which are our best episodes. So without further ado, let's get into the episode.
Welcome to the Better Events Podcast. Join 2 event strategists, Logan Clements and Mary Davidson, who believe we can all create, host, and attend better events. In this podcast, you will learn about event strategy and actions that you can use today as an event host, planner, or manager. Hear directly from the people who are creating innovative and inspiring events today and tomorrow, and grow your business along the way. Now, let's get started, and thanks for listening to the Better Events Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another week of the Better Events Podcast. We are thrilled to be with you today. We are going to be talking about our top 5 episodes of all time today. We're going to take a look back together, and it's going to be a fun little reflection because it's episode number 150, if you can believe it. So we are here celebrating today. But before we get into it, we have our conversation starter. So hi, Logan. First of all, how's it going today?
You know, it's going. It's springtime. There's so much promise in the air.
Promise in the air. I love it. So, Logan, with that in mind, what is something in your life that needs spring cleaning?
So for me, I don't know if I believe in spring cleaning, but I feel like around springtime, I find myself being like, oh, I haven't gone through my sock bin in a while. I should go through all my socks. But specifically, I feel like something in my life that needs spring cleaning is I have random like bins that are like home things. And I save, the manuals that you need for your appliances and things like some of the things that I was realizing the other day. I was like, I should just go through this and get rid of it all. Also, if you're watching our video, my Apple is thinking I'm thumbs upping right now. So I just had fireworks go off. So Apple thinks I should clean out my random home bin. But I have one of those. And I also think I have like a random office, like my work stuff that I feel like when I've been just through a very busy couple weeks, I just end up throwing things in. So I just need to put some music on, essentially throw out the manuals that I'm never going to look at, and or I know they're Googleable if I need to find them, and then go through my random work stuff. How about you, Mary? What's something in your life that needs spring cleaning?
So many things. Lately, I've been doing like the spring cleaning, ironically, not intentionally for spring. It's just been a time when I'm like, we're going through stuff. I'm finally in the mindset of I just want to get rid of things. And so we've just gotten rid of so many things. I'm tired of things. And I've talked about this before, I think, but I really feel passionately about this lately for myself. And so with that in mind, we've done a lot of spring cleaning, but specifically, Logan, when you were talking about your office, it made me think of mine. And in this corner I'm looking at right now, I have these stacked pictures. They're beautiful pictures from places I've traveled and all of those things that I've tried to create this gallery wall, and they're just all on my floor and I haven't hung them up. And it's probably been 2 years. They've just been sitting there waiting to be hung up. Like, that's bad. And I'm saying it now. So keep me accountable, everybody. For this spring season, I'm going to hang my pictures on this wall.
Let's make it a SMART goal, Mary. Pick a date. It's April 10th right now. What are you gonna? April 30th?
May 30th. Feels
Or
far away.
31st. There's 31 days in May, so fact check myself. May 31st, Mary will have hung her gallery wall.
Yes. Send me an email, everybody. Please check with me. I need some accountability on this one.
I love it. And we're all just like you. I have a pile of things that I can't decide if I want to donate or try to sell that I'm looking at right now that I'm like, by May 31st, Mary, I will get rid of that random pile that is here.
Yes, you will.
I'll have sold it, or I will just have given up and finally just donate it to a place that needs it. So, but anyway, Mary already alluded to this, but listeners, we're on episode 150. You have heard our voices probably more than 150 times, but at least 150 times on your favorite podcast app. And it feels like a milestone. We want to acknowledge it. And what better way to acknowledge it than highlight a few of your listeners? We're talking about your favorites. That's not going to say they're not Mary and my favorites, but your favorite episodes. one of the cool parts about podcasting is that we get analytics sometimes. We've changed platforms a few times. So I will say this is probably excluding some of our stats from early days, but we went and pulled, and these are the top 5 episodes based on listens. And when we say they're your favorites, we're gonna tease it, but Mary and I are gonna reveal ones we wish were on this list because it is always just fascinating to see what episodes really resonate with you guys. So for each episode, we're gonna kind of share a couple fun little tidbits about it. But Mary, you want me to reveal our 5th most popular episode?
I do. Go for it.
We're counting down. We're gonna reveal the first at the end. So 5th most popular episode is episode 10. What does an event planner or producer even do? Now,
That's a good
Mary,
one.
yeah. Well, where did we get the idea for this episode? Do you remember?
I think that we were like thinking of our friends and family members who like don't understand what we do, or maybe ask what we do, or whatever. Am I right? Is that where that came from?
I feel like I literally was like picturing family members and or my friends to be like, I want one episode I can send them and be like, invest 20 minutes. This is what I do.
Yes. Have all your questions answered, basically. Which
Yeah.
is crazy because that was episode 10, which is a long time ago. So we really knocked that one out at the beginning, which is great. Super great. Makes sense why
Yeah.
it's the 5th most popular.
Yeah. I feel like when we were first starting, it was a lot of the topics that either felt top of mind for us for what made the cut or we thought would be good for the audience. But I honestly will say I didn't expect this episode to be in the top 5 because it was like, oh, this is relevant to our friends and family. But I feel like based on the stats, it's very relevant to event professionals in general. And we've talked about the jargon. So I feel like some of those listens maybe are from people wanting to know the difference because a lot of people use these terms interchangeably of event planner, event producer. We all call ourselves different things. And so maybe that's why it's taken off. I don't know. Mary, what do you think?
Well, it's interesting because I think that this episode has been in the top 5 for a while, and I think what's interesting to me is that it's still in the top 5. Like, I think we saw this, like, even a year ago, it was in the top 5, so it's stuck, and I love to see that. So, yeah, I agree with what you said. It's just cool to see it continuing to be at the top. But it is also making me wonder, and we get a glimpse of this from the emails that we receive from you all, but we don't have a full understanding of, like, how much experience you have when you're listening to this. Like, how long have you been in the industry? We don't fully know that. And so when I see this, it does make me wonder if it's people who are emerging or are newer to the industry. And we do know that there are many individuals, thank you, listening to the podcast in that space because you've been able to utilize this podcast to kind of help you get going. And so, yeah, it makes sense that that is one that people might naturally just be curious to listen to.
I couldn't agree more. I also think it could be validating for people who are calling themselves an event planner or event producer and are more listening to be like, yeah, that is what I do. So that's our 5th most popular episode. That was episode 10. We are linking all of these in the show notes. I'm going to drop the links in for both Apple and Spotify. Those tend to be our 2 biggest platforms, but you can always go to bettereventspod.com to listen. We're hosted right now on Megaphone, but you can just listen directly on those links as well. Mary, do you want to share our 4th most popular episode?
I absolutely do. Our 4th most popular episode is, drumroll please, episode 2. Starting from the very beginning, basically, episode 2, which is starting with why and finding your event Northstar. What a solid subject for that episode. Also, that is when our audio, mine specifically, was not good. So I'm so glad that stayed in the top 5.
Yeah, I think like thinking about where we got the idea for this episode, it was episode 2. And I think episode 1 was what is the Better Events podcast? So episode 2, I feel like was like us picking, maybe it was our flag in the sand of like, this is something we're really passionate about and a theme that you're going to hear over and over again in our other episodes, which I think is true. But like you, I cringe a little bit that our 2nd episode ever is in the top 5 because not just audio, but I think you and I have also like fallen into our cadence more. Whenever you start something, you're still figuring it out. And so I kind of have a love-hate relationship that this is in the top 5.
Yeah, I think it would be fun to do like a part 2 of episode 2, like where we do it now, because I think we also have more we could say. I don't know, like just more examples, experience, like lessons learned, at least Yeah, I don't know if it would be valuable. Maybe we could look into that, but it's also cool because we have said so much on this podcast, like, with anything you're starting, especially if you wanna do a podcast, like, just start, just do it, and it's funny that you said that because, like, we did just start and did it, and now everyone's listening to this episode that wasn't fully, like, well, at least the quality wasn't fully out there. Um, but I think that's okay because the content was. And so if you're feeling like this out there and you like want to start something, I would still encourage you to start because your content, you still know your stuff, your content's still going to be good. Doesn't matter maybe if your audio is terrible, but this many years later, episode 2 is still kicking it, and that means people like the content. So I'm happy about it.
It's not terrible. You don't you sound like you're on the phone a little bit.
Yeah, I
But
do.
maybe people are taking our advice and going back and listening to our second episode because we've been telling people to go do that to build their confidence to start their own thing. So maybe it's a little bit
Yeah.
of a
Well,
self-fulfilling prophecy that we've created with our other episodes about telling people
yeah.
just to go for it.
I think we've actually gotten a couple emails of people telling us that they started listening to, like, a random episode because they discovered the podcast, then they enjoyed it, and so they went back from the very beginning and started. So that does make a lot of sense, and thank you, everybody, for listening to these beginning episodes. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and that is a theme you're gonna see, listeners, with these top 5. It is a kind of I think it's a fun and sometimes frustrating part of this podcast is so much of what we talk about is evergreen, and we know maybe some of you listen to us every week, you can't wait to hear what we're gonna say next, and other people, you're gonna find us because we did an episode on something you needed at the time, and then maybe, yeah, you're going back and pick and choosing which episode you need to fit whatever phase you're in your life, which, again, I think that's really cool, but does show that you're going to see a lot of these episodes in these top 5 are from our first 2 seasons, which I think is just interesting. And a lot of times it's just because they've been around longer. So you've had more time to go back and enjoy them. But I think, Mary, I wanted to, for you saying we should do a part 2 to things, I instantly, because, Taylor's having her moment. I'm like, oh no, we need to have our own Taylor's version
Yeah,
of some of these episodes at some point.
like remastered episodes of
Yeah, because I still
whatever.
think they're
Yeah.
relevant. I think it just is interesting maybe to re-answer those questions, as we continue to evolve in our careers. So, but yes, that was our 4th most popular episode is episode 2, listeners. All about your North Star.
Love it. And Logan, introduce us to the 3rd most popular episode.
It's we have a lot of numbers going on here. The 3rd most popular episode, drum roll please. Episode 4, fundraising event strategies for nonprofits.
What?
Mary, where did we get this idea?
This was when I was starting my business and I was specializing and still do in fundraising events. And I was like, I think this was a moment when I was like, we should talk about this. Or maybe it was your idea. I don't know whose idea it was, but it made sense that we needed to talk about fundraising events.
Yeah,
And we did. Do you
I
remember
think
it happening differently?
no, I mean, I think it was like, yeah, it'd be a good content pillar for you
Yeah.
with your business. I think there's
Yeah.
another episode where I talked about run a shows or something. Like we both wanted to, again, part of the launching of this podcast is like tell people what the podcast is. Let's set some values and expectations for what like the Northstar episode. And then I think we also wanted to share specifically what you and I either wanted to be known for at the time or that was like our background.
Mhm.
And speak from, I mean, we've always wanted to speak from what we know. And if we don't know it, to bring somebody else in. So I feel like this was one where we tapped your nonprofit expertise, which this is also probably a fun episode if we ever wanted to revisit and do a part 2 to it. Cause I feel like you've only expanded and grown what you've done in nonprofits since then.
Thank you. Yeah, I have more opinions than before for sure, but that definitely is it's a good like base conversation. I do remember that. It's a good place to start, but now we could probably get a little bit deeper and yeah, that was a fun episode and I'm glad that people found value in it. It is surprising to me that they did. Sometimes with nonprofits I feel like I'm in my own little world, but the reality is it's a huge market and a lot of people plan nonprofit events. You do it, Logan, like a lot of people
Yeah.
do it.
And I think it also though then speaks to maybe the need that there's not a lot of content out there that is so pointed towards nonprofit fundraising and from the event perspective. Like I just think it was a unique topic. It still is. I don't know if there's a ton, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe there's a ton of other podcasts that cover it. There might be only a handful that are dedicated to it. So
For
that might
events,
be also
definitely not. Yeah,
yeah, when
there's
you
a lot
like
of
Google it.
fundraising general podcasts, but yeah,
But from the
for sure.
event perspective, because there is some nuances that I think you tackle. So yeah, 3rd most popular episode was episode 4. So guys,
Woo!
really love our old stuff, which we love, but
Yeah.
eat at the same time. All right, Mary, how about our second most popular episode?
Second most popular episode, drum roll please, is
Mm,
episode 74. So we've jumped now. Wow. Okay, episode 74 is how to start an event planning business. I'm thrilled that this one's on there. Gotta be honest.
you are.
Yes, I am. Because that actually was one I had on my list. And so I'm really glad that we just knocked that one out of there, like as one of my favorites. Because it's like, I don't know, it's a key conversation. Once again, it's a basic conversation, but I'm surprised it took us 74 episodes to talk about it. Like we waited that long.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think we've sprinkled things in throughout all the episodes, but yes, I think I'm with you. This is like a core pillar of, I feel like, what speaks to the Better Events community, something that you and I both have experience doing and from just different timelines and different perspectives. And so I don't think I'm too surprised that this was in the top one, top second most listens. But I also, in my head, I feel like there's an assumption that I had that people would be really into like our guest episodes or like really, expert topics. And this was one that was just really a candid conversation between you and I about how we started our business and things we wish we knew and lessons learned along the way, which I think it's just pretty cool that this is in the top 5.
Yeah, I agree. It's a fun story to share. And once again, we could do a second version of this now and kind of see how that's grown over the years. Because I think we just learn constantly. We're learning so many lessons, but we bring those up, like you said, in other episodes along the way. It's very relevant to just like our story. But yeah, I really enjoy that episode. So listen to it if you haven't heard it and you're interested in like the entrepreneurial side of the business, like check that one out for sure.
All
And
right.
so that brings us to our big one. Number 1, our most popular episode. Logan, what is it?
Drum roll, please. Oh, the most popular episode of the Better Events podcast up through episode 150 that we're currently in right now is episode 72. Only 2 episodes before 74. But episode 72, skills that every event planner or producer needs. Mary, I am shocked that this is the number 1 episode.
I am actually shocked as well. Like, I'm also like, was it that groundbreaking? Like, I don't know.
Well, this is where it's the internet is a funny place, or like creating things and creating content is a very funny place because how we got the idea for this episode, honestly, I feel like Mary was you and I being like, okay, we've really planned out some of these other episodes coming up. We need another episode. What do we want to talk about? And I feel like we pulled this together pretty close to like getting in
Yeah.
and just recording it and just more taking the guidelines of like the title that you have, listeners, of event skills that every event planner producer needs. And we kind of like riffed off of it. So to
Was this
me, it
one of
just,
our off the cuff episodes?
I
Like,
think so. I
yeah.
think
When
I have
we're
a feeling it does. And that's why I'm frustrated because I'm like, we've put so much effort into
uh
some other episodes. And I'm like, didn't even crack the top 10. So this is why I say the internet's a funny place.
Yeah, yeah. When we're planning what does to talk our to have our episodes on, listeners, we will sometimes just put in one that's literally like off the cuff. We'll just come up with something in the moment that we're feeling like is a good thing to talk about that's relevant at that time. So yeah, that might have been one of those. Wow.
I feel like it was. But again, similar to the vein of our fifth most popular one about what does an event planner producer need to like even do. I feel like we've maybe unbeknownst to us created another kind of pillar
Mhm.
baseline episode for people to go back to, whether again, appealing maybe more to newer folks in the industry, whether they're like brand new to working or they're looking to transition and move into the event industry, or something that's validating for somebody who's been in it and is again being like, yep, I'm doing that. Yes, I'm doing that. Oh, I hadn't thought I think I do that, but maybe it gave people ideas for how they talk about what they do.
Yeah, I like how you're calling a lot of these pillar episodes because they're more like they're like your basic, like they're really setting the groundwork for many of these episodes at least. And so, yeah, that's pretty interesting, but it makes sense too because when we're diving into more details specifically like about exhibitors or something like that, it makes sense that if you're not working with exhibitors, that might not be as interesting to you, but it's interesting to a key group of people, so it's going to have less listens. But all to say is we like to bring you a variety here on the Better Events podcast. And so thank you for whatever episode you've enjoyed, even if it's not on this top 5, that's okay.
Yeah, we still love you. I love all of these episodes. I
Yeah.
think it just, to me, again, we say podcasting can be kind of lonely. It's Mary and I with our microphones in our home offices, and we love any of our real life interactions with people who know the podcast, whether it's, reaching out on LinkedIn or in person at an event. And so it's just funny that all we have really to go off are stats. So it's
Mhm.
like these are the ones that people come to. There's also a world where when I say the internet's weird, like these are also ones that maybe Google SEO, search engine optimization, has picked
Picks
up.
up. Mhm.
And again, there's not a lot of, other people doing what we're doing. We see a lot of interview based, event industry podcasts and things like that. And I mean, looking at these now, I would say honestly, probably all five, if I was 8 years ago and thinking about starting and going out on my own, I probably would want to listen to episodes like this. Like those
Mhm.
five do appeal to me to figure out how I position myself. How do I talk about what I do? What's my title? Like all of that kind of stuff. So it's not too off base, but still surprising.
No, definitely. And I think that we've talked about we've reflected on our favorite episodes over time, like they've come up in one way or another. But let's say that there are a handful of episodes, maybe one or more, that we wish was in this top 5 list, Logan. What's one that you would choose to add to this list?
Well, again, seeing now what the listeners chose, the first one I've got to put on there is building a profitable event business. This was episode 96 that we did on the podcast, and I think why this should be in there is because you get the foundation of how to start in episode 74. But if you haven't listened to 96, I think that's an amazing follow up
Mhm.
because the key in that title is profitable. There are so many, we talk about this a lot in that episode, but there's so many people out there doing events, but they're not profitable or they're not sustainable or you're going to burn out as a business owner. And I just think you and I, Mary, kind of opened up about some of the stuff that we've gone through and learned and evolved. And it's such a good kind of building block on top of these pillars that we talk about for how you can take your business to the next level and learn from the lessons that we've learned versus having to experience them yourself.
Mhm. As we're talking about this, I'm thinking like we should have a list where it's like, you want to start an event planning business? Here's your 10 episodes from our podcast to listen to. Because at this point, we're at 150. I'm not going to blame you, listeners, if you're like, what episode do I? What is that?
More content we have to make. I'm just
More
kidding.
content. Don't hold us to this, everybody. But also, if you want that, maybe tell us, and then we'll make it happen. But I could
Yeah.
see how that would be valuable.
We'll make it, maybe we think about a landing page or something. This is something
Landing page.
now where I'm like, AI could help us do this, right? It could help us index some of our.
Sure. Yeah.
We do have on our homepage, I will say, of our website, it is a little free plugin that we use. You can search key terms and it will pop up with the episode for you. It does take you off our website and goes to, I don't think, Spotify or Apple. It goes to some like other
Yeah.
third party. But that has been a tool I use when I'm trying to remember, if you don't remember these episode numbers, but you remember the word profitable, go to bettereventspod.com and you can type in profitable in that search bar and that episode will pop up. And then you can find it on your podcast app.
Yeah, and I've actually done that before when we've gotten emails and someone's like, I want to start an event planning business. What episodes would you recommend? I've searched in there and then sent them a list. So thank you, Logan. In the meantime, if you're interested, go check that feature out on our website.
All right, Mary, what's one that you wish was in the top 5?
All right. One that I wish is actually this. I'm double dipping here a little bit, but I think every year we've done a lessons learned in events and business episode. And any of those, I wish any of those were in the top 5. I can see why they're not like as appealing, like marketing wise, and maybe a little vague. But these are crucial episodes because we are taking all of this and sharing our experience over like 1 year. Like, what have we learned and what's been hard? And usually those are pretty like open and honest conversations where we shared some serious lessons learned, which we want you all to hear because we don't want you to learn the hard way. So you can learn through us. And so I would like just emphasize those. I wish it was on there just to save people, a little bit of grief, hopefully on their end. They can listen to ours instead.
Yeah, I love those episodes too. I think it's also for us, it's fun. It's a little time capsule going back in time. And for us, I don't know. I feel like I do feel, no, I grow and evolve, but nothing is more humbling or showcasing how much I've grown than listening to whatever goals I set a year ago
Mhm.
and me
Yeah.
talking about them and then being a year in the future and being like, okay, we crushed it, or, things changed. So that's a great one, Mary. Another one that I love was episode 129 from last season. This one was just what's been on our mind. This one, again, I think topic wise, we talk about doing some like off the cuff things. And this was genuinely, Mary and I had a lot of stuff going on individually with our businesses and work and personal. And it was just like, let's just chat about what's on our mind and we'll see where this goes. And I think it is an interesting snapshot of conversations that Mary and I have together, we have with other event planners, and hopefully it was validating. For me, I see why it's not in the top 5 because again, the title isn't necessarily buzzworthy, but there's a lot of really honest event planner reflections that come out in that one. And I've had a couple people in real life then come up to me and talk about some of the vulnerability I think both of us shared on that episode and how that resonated with them. So that's been really empowering to hear. So episode 129 of what's been on our mind.
I think there's a lot of value in us capturing the relevancy of just the things that are on our mind and what we're thinking about for sure. So those are fun episodes. So we should probably do that again.
What's another one for you, Mary?
Yeah, my next one I would say is episode number 110. So I've talked about this a lot. It's not an event, it's an experience with the Sit Down UK. I want to call out this guest episode because for me it was really impactful. Just the content of the episode was about creating like a guest experience and how you can do that even before the attendees arrive and kind of create this like community around your event. It was something when I heard it at the time that was not on my radar. And so it was really, really like eye-opening for me. So I think that's more of a personal thing. I just gained a lot of value from it. And I wish it was in the top 5 because I hope others would as well. But certainly people are listening to it, but that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, shout out to Icy, who was also on our board of advisors for the Better Events Conference. I think that episode kicked us into gear of focusing a little bit of how we can add to the experience and not just the logistics and the timelines and the, how this goes and really trying to have that. So I know that came out of that episode. I think my last one, and there's so many more we could keep going on, but my last one that I would, again, just going with the theme of what listeners seem to be resonating with is going back to episode 44, which was managing finances as a small business owner. In line with the profitability one, but this is one that I just think money is such an uncomfortable topic to talk about. I sweat thinking about it, but also something that's so important and things I wish that people were talking about more when I had first started. And I'm lucky to have built a system, an ecosystem around me of people I can now talk about the money side because it is my least favorite part of what I do and yet so crucial to what I do. I need money to be able to do all of the things that I want to do, both as a business and personally. So that episode, I think, was chock full with some details. Mary and I have certain things we do the same, certain things we do differently. So I just think it's, again, not prescriptive of exactly how to run your finances as a business owner, but to get you thinking and hopefully spark some conversations.
Yeah, I don't like finances at all and talking about money. So you're right. It's an uncomfortable conversation, but important. So I'm really glad that you did call that one out as well. There are so many more that we could add to the list, but I think we've given you listeners a good chunk to go back and listen to if you haven't heard these episodes.
And it's episode 150, listeners. I mean, hopefully we'll be doing this for another 150 more, if not more than that. And maybe we'll like scoff at younger us being like, wow, we were so proud of 150 and now we've had 1,000 or whatever. We'll see. I like big goals.
Dream big. Yep.
Yeah. But that brings us to the end of our episode. And Mary, you have our bonus tip this week.
I do. Our bonus tip is simple today, but that is how we like it sometimes. So the bonus tip for today is to do a site visit. If your event is on site at a location, I know that this is obvious, but there are instances I think that we get in when we're like, maybe you've been there, but it's been a while, or you've seen enough pictures and they've captured it well online that you're like, I actually don't think I need to go. I'm going to say, when you can, absolutely do a site visit in person. It's so much better seeing it in person. Pictures, even videos, even like the 360 tours of spaces on websites are not the same as seeing it in person. For me, I've had so many like ideas and realizations when I'm doing an on-site site visit. And it's like one of the best uses of my time, I feel like, in the planning process. So my bonus tip today is just a reminder to make sure you're doing your site visits.
Thank you, Mary. I love the bonus tip. And listeners, that brings us to the end of our episode. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Better Events Pod. You can send us an email at bettereventspod@gmail.com or visit our website at bettereventspod.com. As we mentioned, you can search episode titles and get the actual numbers. It's very helpful. And you can also connect with us on LinkedIn directly. Mary and I love connecting with you all. So please continue to do that. And thank you for listening. And we'll be back in your feeds again next Wednesday.